You're watching GTV Breakfast. My name is Kafri Day. How does a young shovel boy rise to the top of the world as far as business is concerned? What are the lessons from the story of his life? My guest is Sam Jonah. Welcome to GTV Breakfast.
Thank you.
A little bit tells me that your full name is Samuel Jonah. Welcome to GTV Breakfast.
Kelvin
Jonah. A little bit tells me that your full name is
Samuel. Actually, just last week,
Son.
a young man came to my office and gave me something from Wikipedia, and which he had framed for me. And it was the first time that I had noticed that I had a new name, Kelvin.
Somebody gave you that name?
I don't know where it came from. So I'm impressed that I've been I've had another name added to mine.
Eso is your name?
Eso is my name.
Who calls you Eso?
Oh, close friends. Close friends.
Okay.
Close friends and family.
Okay.
I'm seventh born, and I happen to have been named after my uncle. Grand uncle was called Kunyesong.
Okay.
But happened to be seventh born, as you know, for accounts. If you are normally, for a seventh born, it's not. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Would you consider 7 to be your lucky number?
No, actually, I don't get into numbers when it comes to these things. So I don't know, but whatever it is, it served me well.
It has served you well indeed. And I was just, before we had the interview, I was looking at a statue in your hall of what I assume is a miner, a gentleman holding a shovel and looking into the future. What does mining mean to you after all the years that you've been involved with this particular part of Ghana's life, really?
Well, it's been my life. I started working for a mine at the age of 19 after I'd finished the sixth form. And it's been, for the most part of my working life, I've been working in mines or managing mines. So it's been an important part of my journey. Of course, mining has a crucial role in the economic development of this country. Ghana is making great strides in this area. As you know, we are now the world, Africa's #1 producer of gold. At my time, South Africa was. But it says an awful lot about the nature of the beast, the nature of the industry itself, that if you don't invest, you have to replace what you are mining every day. For the gold you are taking out, you have to replace it through exploration. So if you don't, and if you are lucky, you can explore, but if you are not lucky enough, if you don't have a seventh to add your name, you'll not find enough gold to play. So your reserves have to be increased, enhanced all the time, and it can only be done through exploration. And when they stop to explore, that is when they start to die. And that's why South Africa, which was at some stage producing more than 60% of the world's gold production, in the lower ranks of the ratings of gold producers.
So you have to think about sustainability.
Absolutely. Sustainability, yes. Sustainability, yes. Sustainability is very, very important. But sustainability in a broad sense. Sustainability, we can talk about it all day, but not just in the terms of replacing your reserves, but sustainability in the sense that the social license you have for mining a nation's waste assets, irreplaceable asset, is used sensibly, ethically, morally. It is used in a manner that brings joy, satisfaction, improvement in the quality of life of those whose lives are affected by your activities. So I like to look at sustainability in a more broad sense than just replacing your reserves.
Let's take it back to the beginning. Can you remember the first time you went down a hole to look for gold? And the sensations that you had?
I can't forget that. I knew absolutely nothing at all about what I let myself in for. And I had applied for a scholarship from Ashanti, Goldfields in those days. That was what it was called. And I had to go through an orientation program before they would confer the scholarship. And so my very first visit underground was to go down 1 mile deep. And it was incredibly hot and incredibly humid. I remember when we got down there to the level, which is about 5,800 odd feet. It was a shock to the system. But, you get used to that within a few minutes. Everybody else does. So, it's not a big deal.
How long does it take for you to get down into the earth a mile deep?
Oh, no, it's a lift. It's a lift. So, I don't know.
Couple of minutes?
Couple of minutes, yes. A couple of minutes.
And describe what it smelled like. What was it like?
It smelled rocky. I mean, so it was humid. So it's no different from going into a tunnel in that sense, except that this is deep and it's hot.
Were you scared?
No, I was apprehensive, but I won't say I was scared because it's something new, and when you're entering into something new, everybody gets apprehensive. I guess it's not part of nature, but we all get apprehensive. But scared, no. But fear is a terrible, negative emotion. It doesn't make you think clearly, and I have never had that as part of my lexicon.
Did you never ever think once that maybe I may not come back up, maybe something will collapse? You don't retain any of those thoughts when you're down there?
No, I think that you focus on what you have to do and get on with it. I think that if you are going into battle and you're a soldier and you are thinking about whether, if you're going to die or whatever, you may not produce your best because it can overwhelm you. That's what overwhelm you. But I went in there like all the miners. We all went there to go and perform a job, and sadly, in those days, safety was not fashionable, so people didn't care much about it. People were dropping dead or whatever. It didn't even merit mention in the local newspapers. But it was certainly not something which was uppermost in your mind. But of course, when you got up and then they hear that there had been an accident and some people had died and all of that, you were affected. But hey, you just get on with the business. So,
what was a normal shift like? You go down 1 mile. How long do you stay out there?
You go down. Typically, you go down. Let's say 6:30 in the morning, and you come back. You come up at about 2 o'clock.
That's
if you had an overtime.
Okay.
If you had to stay on, then you stay on sometimes 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and it's 7 days a week, 7 times a week.
Any creatures down there?
No, you do have mice, particularly where you use timber to support the roof. Somehow, mice will find their way into places like that. Easy, but I mean, that is nothing.
No bats?
No. I don't have that. No, they have that encounter, no.
Is it possible now to actually go down a mine as a tourist experience in Ghana? Or maybe a disused mine?
I'm talking about disused mine because, if you're going to go down, and there are very few underground mines, if that's what you mean. All the new ones are surface mines. As it were, there's no shaft, there's no cage which is going to take you underground. Okay. But I guess that if you applied to want to go to a Boise, how to have the experience, I'm sure they will facilitate. Or Takwa, they will facilitate, I'm sure.
Is there an experience that truly shocked you and surprised you in your experience of going down so deep? Anything that marked your mind and never made you forget about it?
Mining is an interesting industry. It's not dissimilar from being a soldier, joining the armed forces. It requires a lot of discipline. It requires a lot of team work and team effort. You work as a team, you respect each other, you look after everybody's back because everybody else will look after your back. You understand what I'm saying? Typical soldiers, if somebody falls, they don't live in there. You all come rally around to make sure, even when he's dead, he's taken away. Mining is like that. The level of camaraderie, we are colleagues, we are comrades, we are in this thing together. And that is the feeling, the joy that you get. The beauty about my experience is that, we were working, I was working with people who had no formal education. People who had been brought in as migrant labor from the north or Niger or Guinea or Cote d'Ivoire and had come to Obuasi to work in the mines. As I said, they've had no formal education, but don't be fooled. They were incredibly wise. And of course, they were very experienced miners. So you had to learn at their feet. And all I had was my certificate, A-level certificate, which doesn't count for much in the mind.
In the mind.
It doesn't help you.
Nobody cares about you. Of course, nobody cared.
I think that if they knew I went to the side, I would have cared. But any other school would not have cared. But anyway, but it was interesting because you learn at the future. You learn to be humble, because if you are not humble, you will not acquire the skills that I think I managed to acquire working with these people. And it comes with trust. It comes from trust. It comes from confidence. It comes from being comfortable with you as a colleague, and as I said, you look after them and they look after you. And I was privileged to be in that company. So, I mean, you add together underground, and when you go down, for the first 30 minutes or so, you are all communally, you all sit down and eat, and you share everybody's food. One day, when you asked me about the experience, my first shock to the system was we're eating and had a bite of somebody's food, more than a bite actually, and they had mine also. And when he was a Bagatti guy, and he turned around to me after and he says, "Did you know what you just ate?" And I said, "No, I don't." And he made the sound of a dog. Woof. And I asked him, "Do you know what you just ate?" And he said, "No." And I said, "It was a snake," and he jumped. Now, if I had known it was dog, I think I would have let it pass. Yeah, but it was interesting. Yeah, it was interesting. Yes. Yeah, there are many interesting moments like that. Very instructive. Yeah.
Do you miss it? You miss going back?
Oh yeah. I do. And I worked. I used to go underground every time I went to Obuasi or any of the mines in South Africa, Wanabe, or Brazil, whatever, Australia. The joy came when I got into my overalls and my boots and
you go down
because I'm a product of that system. So yeah.
You hinted at some of the accidents and the deaths when back in the day there wasn't too much of a focus on the safety culture. Which of these accidents or deaths really marked you?
There's one which I have narrated in an interview I gave with the rival studio, and it was with 1 mile deep, and we were working, and I was almost a senior man there, and we were trying out a new drilling equipment, so I was supervising that, and then all of a sudden I noticed that it made a lot of noise from the drilling, but I noticed that there were kind of cap lamps. You call them cap lamps, the lamp on the floor, almost not really far from where you are sitting. And a couple of them. So, then there was a lot of dust. The whole place was enveloped in dust. So we stopped, went, and then I got a whole roof, just almost next to where it had collapsed. And I trapped a number of people. Some of them were dead. So miners are like soldiers. When they get into this kind of situation, an emergency, they forget about their personal well-being. Everybody rushes to go like that. And so we all went in, and this was not the time to be a hero. All of us went in to help. And so we rescued who we could. And one guy in particular, we rescued, and we took him to the station where he was going to get the lift. And I accompanied him, and I saw that he physically looked okay, except that he was bleeding from his private part. And I didn't think much of it. But he had obviously been crushed. There was, people had died. So as he was being taken up, because it took a while to get him, you had to use a hammer to break the rocks to release him. So as the lift was about to go up, he said to me in impeccable Fante, well, this was not heroism, because as I said, everybody does it, and it was a team effort. Anyway, I happened to have been the senior. So I went back to work, and then when we surfaced here, I was told that he hadn't made it. He died when they got him to the hospital. I was quite affected by it. But that and many similar events convinced me that if I had the opportunity and had the authority, we would have to do something about the safety culture of the company. And that is what I would, with greatest pride, I would say, that is one of I would like to believe was one of my legacies. Yeah.
What surprised you most about the work that you did there in terms of just the resilience of people and
miners are like soldiers. They're tough. They're tough. We are tough. We can take an awful lot. Physically, I think our threshold for pain is quite high, typically. And as I said, to be working underground 8 hours in a place which is, excuse the expression, dirty,
and dark,
humid, and hot, takes an awful lot. It takes a totally different personality to be able to go through that. And it's like being a soldier. I keep going back to being a soldier because that would have been my first love. I wanted to follow my father.
Father was a soldier,
but it didn't work out. I wasn't good enough for them. So.
You're being very modest. I'm just wondering, so somebody's lost out. How long can it take for somebody to survive down there? I mean, do you remember any? Say there's an accident and somebody's missing. Do you remember any?
Actually, interesting enough, the one incident comes to mind, and if it wasn't serious, it would be funny. But one Easter, our local security picked up intelligence that Obuasi was such a rich mine in areas that whenever the gold was exposed, the were in were in competition with the employer for the same thing. You understand what I'm saying? Yes. So people would take chances, go underground and illegally try and mine gold and all of that. And of course, we had good security. So one fateful Easter morning, I was younged out of my sleep that they had picked up, our security had picked up some local intelligence that some people had gone underground illegally during the Easter period. That was like I'm saying, but deep down. Yeah, deep down.
Yeah.
On Good Friday, and one of them had not been accounted for. So because they had been accounted for, what got on, it was illegal. Therefore, nobody knew that they had gone underground. But of course, talk in the village. They got to the security that one guy had not been accounted for. They went legally. And of course, they were not going to own up that they went. So we had some from intel as to where possibly, which level, which floor in the building, or what call it a building, that's the equivalent really. I mean, the lift takes you down to different levels. Which level he probably would have gone to, and which area, because we knew there were very areas areas which were very, very rich. And so I was the mine captain in charge of the area. So obviously I had to go with a team to go and look for him. So we looked everywhere, and then we went to one particular area. And then when we went there, strange, but we had a lift goes down in a shaft. It's a hole, nothing else.
It's a hole, yeah.
And there's a hole which is about 100 meters, 100 feet in depth. And it is in that hole that you shovel into that hole, and then the locomotive will be under that to take it away. And so we noticed that there was some noise coming from the hole, which was about, let's say, 80 meters down, 80 feet or so down. Then we noticed there was a Kaplan which was fading because the battery was dying.
Yeah.
So we had to go down and had to lead by example.
So you went.
So we, the military guys, they go down, they rappel. Yeah. So we had to make one, and then go down. And boy, I have never had such an experience before. I had never experienced such a stench. Human, what do you call it? The smell of rot, the skin or flesh. The guy had been there since Friday. He was surviving on trickles of water coming down, dirty water coming down. He was in good shape, but he had not eaten since Friday. He had not had proper water. He had not had a wash. And the stench was just overpowering.
Sweat, excrement, urine, everything.
Overpowering.
And this was a Sunday.
It was Easter.
Wow.
And quite
a real resurrection. Right?
I have to confess, yes, for a fleeting moment, I passed out.
It was that powerful.
Yeah, I've never experienced such rotten stench before. So I almost passed out, but then quickly you get yourself together and we had to do what we have to do to bring him up. But what was interesting was he was almost half-conscious. And all he was saying was, Jato Aden, Jato why. We brought him up. So the Jato gave us the lead. Okay, so we went to the police and all of that and went and arrested the Jato guy. It turned out that they thought he had cheated on them on previous occasions. So they actually threw him down. They left him there for dead. Wow. And came back and dropped the hint, knowing that he's dead. That Jato has not, the guy has not come back. So we went in there and mercifully it ended well in the sense that he did not die. He survived. Of course, he lost his job, but he survived. And the Jato, I think the police dealt with him. Dealt with him. Yeah.
That was one story.
It was that that was an eye-opener. It was humbling. I've never been exposed to this, so I imagine those who have had to deal with situations, where, yeah.
Thanks for sharing that story. And in case you just joined us, this is GTV Breakfast. I'm sitting with Sir Sam Jonah, and he's recounting his days deep down underground, a mile deep, hunting for gold. And now we take it to the surface, to the highest points of business excellence, where he served on so many boards, took Ashanti Goldfields to the New York Stock Exchange. What was the thrill of that experience like for you? Could you believe you were actually standing there, hitting that bell?
First of all, we became a public company in 1994. And we listed in London and we listed in Ghana. And we needed to raise a lot of money for development of the new mines that we had acquired. And when it comes to raising money, the capital city of the world is New York. So we thought that it would help our cause. We wanted to have a convertible bond, a significant sum. In fact, it turned out it was the biggest raised by a mining company at the time.
How much money were you looking for?
It was about 300 million. So we had to go through a listing in the New York Stock Exchange. And quite frankly, the criteria for admission was pretty tough. And we went through that. So for me, the biggest joy came when we ticked all the boxes and they said, your listing is this particular day. Because we were breaking ground. We were punching through a glass ceiling. We were the first African company ever to be listed on the New York Stock Exchange. Now, quite a few are there.
Yes. But you led the way.
We were the trailblazers. We had a wonderful team of men and women who made it happen. We had a fantastic head of treasury lady, Ghanaian lady, and they made it happen. So my job, which was the easiest part, was to take the glory, to go there and stand and then use the gavel to open the exchange, the trading for the day. And let me just say this, that I'm not usually faced by events, of a personal nature, things which affect me. So I had not really appreciated the import of it until when we got there and the chief executive of the exchange hosted breakfast before I would go there and open the day for trading. And when he hit us that we were the first African company listed on New York Exchange. That comes with responsibility also, because it's almost like you, as a company, you're feeling the weight of your continent on your back. Because it's not for nothing that you were the first. Others may have tried, but you made it. In the real world out there, it's not easy to go past some of the prejudices and stereotypes and all of that we all go through, given what our address is. So you felt the weight of responsibility on your shoulders. And so as much as a sight as it was, and we had not appreciated that, this is just an aside, but we had not appreciated that the Ghanaian embassy wanted to be associated with this tremendous, very exciting event.
Yeah.
And at that time, Nana Ojo of Lumapo, he'd been a very prominent king here, was in New York on a visit.
Okay.
And the ambassador had roped him to join us.
Okay.
And in New York, they brought dancers, Ghanaians. And so they had never seen this on the floor of the stock exchange, that Ghanaian dancers took over the front,
throbbing and everything.
Throbbing and they were wriggling their wrists and all of those things that we see here.
Yes.
And it was fun to see, fun to watch. They thought that something always new comes from Africa.
Definitely.
So yeah, it was a nice day. It was a nice day.
How do you celebrate?
I'm not sure. I didn't celebrate. I mean, it was. I was happy that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the whole press corps. I mean, my God, as I came out, then that's when it hit me, the import of it, the significance of it. Because when I came out, having done this, then CNN Live, CNBC, NBC, all of them, Squawk, all of them, BBC, wanted live interviews with you. And that was sobering. That was humbling.
It was a big deal.
It was. That's when I appreciated that it was a big deal. Take it as.
How did you handle being often the only black face or person in a room dealing with these things? Because trailblazers, there must be some pressure on you.
Well, there had been others ahead of me, not necessarily in my industry, but I'm sure I was not the only one. But I mean, put it this way, I had always said that I would let, in all circumstances that I find myself in, I'll let the fact of my blackness be your problem. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I'll let it be your burden. So as far as I'm concerned, when I get into a situation, I would like to perform in a manner and to a standard that would be so compelling that you yourself, if you have to decide as to what kind of judgment you have to make of me, you will go past my color. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do.
Yeah, because otherwise you become a prisoner to that. You know, I would work, be oblivious to the fact that I'm black. Let the fact that I'm black be your problem. And that's when I was coming up in the system in Obuasi working. I said to myself that if it was my father who sowed the seed, I said to myself, my father famously said, listen, this is a white man's business. Okay. When the white people are asleep, you have to be going to work again. In other words, you come up brilliantly put it that when the developed countries were sleeping, we should be running. Okay. So I decided that, listen, the way I'll get noticed was that if you have to produce 1 ton of rock, and that is what's expected of your target for the day, I would make sure me and my team, we will produce 1.5. So that when it comes to you as a white man, to what the managers were white, to determine who gets promoted between me and a white guy who has produced 1 ton and I produce 1.5, come and tell me that you, because you know, I wonder, because if you think that it's because I'm black, okay, fine, you have to deal with your conscience. But the guy produced 1.5, the other guy produced 1, but I'm not going to give it to him because he's black.
How does it work? The numbers should speak for themselves.
Yeah, it doesn't work. Yeah. And the important lesson also is that don't take crap. Excuse my French. I mean, don't take if you feel that you are not being equitably treated, if you feel that justice is not being meted out, we all too often we tend to take this in our stride. Oh, man, person can be there. No.
It's almost a Ghanaian way.
No. I will confront you. I'll say, listen, my friend, the target is 1 ton. I produce 1.5. Why are you giving this your burden? Can you explain to me? And there were several times when it happened, and it backed off. Because they have no rational, logical, sensible reason for discriminating against you other than you are black. And I will not give you that pleasure.
Are you still like that
Yes.
now? If somebody wants to give you crap, you push back.
Yes. I don't take. I mean, I'm a minor. As I said, it's like being a soldier. I don't take nonsense. I don't suffer fools. I stand my ground.
What's the latest nonsense that somebody tried to run by you?
I don't remember. comes every hour.
Like hourly nurses.
No.
Did people try to take advantage of you because of who you are and what you've done and try to run things by you?
Oh, I mean, if I say take advantage, it sounds negative. I think that I always put myself in the other guy's position. I've had people who knew me, went to elementary school with me, knew me, went to secondary school with me, who are not half as privileged as I am. Okay. And when they approach you with the problems, it is always easy. The easier thing is to dismiss. But then I say to myself, put yourself in the shoe was on the other foot. Would you not go to him? So sometimes I get overwhelmed with these requests and approach. You go there, sometimes you want to be private, you don't want the intrusion, but somebody will come and say, oh, can I take a picture with you? Oh, I've got a kid who's doing this and this and that. And the thing is, don't lose your cool, because if the shoe was on another foot, you do the same thing. I don't get upset about that. Occasionally, I wish I had that previously, but I said to myself, I checked myself and I said, I went to school with guys who were just as bright, if not brighter. I went to secondary school with guys who were just as bright, if not brighter. And they are not where I am. So why would I think that I'm special? The circumstances have changed. I've made me who I am. A large part of it outside my control, influence. So I should of that and make look down on people or let them feel that they are inferior or no. I think it's bad enough that they are less privileged. That's bad enough. Don't run with him.
Do you feel blessed?
Another foot, you do the same thing. I don't get upset. Yes. Occasionally, I wish bad enough that they are less privileged. That's bad enough. You're right, dangerous character.
Do you feel blessed?
I'm not religious.
Why not?
Yes, I'm spiritual.
What's the difference? By who?
You tell me that it is very difficult for me to believe I'm not religious.
Why not?
I'm spiritual, and that we are here for a reason. And that I didn't just happen. It isn't just that my mother met my father. It is very difficult for me to believe that there's I think that there's a grand designer who's there. And that we are here. When I was growing up, and that I didn't just happen. It isn't just that my mother met my father. And then if your father was considered, when you listen to business in Obuasi at that time, I think that's a grand designer. Smith who bought the illegally won gold. When I was growing up, if your father was a goldsmith, you were shunned in the school. You say, hey, his father's a dealer. You understand?
Yes.
And there's no way, and my mother was very religious. And my father was not. But my father was almost invariably at every harvest. He would be the chairman for the harvest. He was reasonably well to do. And then over a period, you saw the evolution. There are people who were dealers, who were shunned, who society did not want to be associated with, became the chairman of harvest. So it didn't matter what they stood for. It didn't matter their value systems. Okay. What was important to the church was the money that they were prepared to give to the church. Something out of me. I saw it. You understand what I'm saying? And I mean, if you turn on the TV now and look at the various TV stations, radio stations, I mean, what they preach, that's not godly. I saw one yesterday, and a so-called prophet. The same guy had a woman carry cement to a distance. Just on TV, carried cement, was stepping on the limb of on the stomach of a woman who was carrying a baby. The last one I saw yesterday was that the person had somebody, a believer, hold his foot, and all sorts of incantations, speaking in tongues, and then in the end it says, pull the shoe, and here and behold, the guy who was always looking for a passport, this is his passport. And the whole place pressed into. I mean, my God, you would have known that, Adam, you are looking for a passport. You would have had enough contacts to have gotten a passport for you. And then it is, and I'm not belittling this. This is happening every day, because if you turn it on, you are shocked by what you hear, the sermons that you hear prosperity. If you do this, you buy it. I mean, America is even worse. God has said that I should buy a plane. So then poor people, most invariably the people who attend churches, are giving their monies to these people, charlatans. No.
So you don't want to be part of that?
No.
Are you surprised that
I will have my quiet moment, and I would relate to whoever I know.
I'm just curious. So how do you call him, or whoever is out there, or is it a her or him?
The Almighty. I think it's beyond sex, beyond gender. Whoever is here looks.
You're happy. I'm happy that you've spoken a little bit about a side of you that you probably normally don't speak about. A couple of rapid fire questions. So, what's it like advising presidents? Because you've advised quite a few in your life.
I don't. It's not just one person to another. I mean, it's not one-on-one. I've been privileged to become part of an advisory team of about 8 people. Yes, you advised Thabo Mbeki for 7 years. And you can always give advice, but whether they will listen or not, that is up to the individual. And I can tell you that Thabo Mbeki was a leader. I mean, he sought advice. He asked us to become that. It was a very, I'm actually the only exception, very eminent group of people who became his advisors. And so too, President Obasanjo. And I saw leadership at first hand. I mean, this guy, I admire the ministry. So I saw very much the discipline, he took charge, and that was it. And also President Kufuor, it was a joy watching him at close quarters, how he operated as a president. So yeah, I've had that privilege of 7, and I've been an advisor to the Togolese president, and in fact, I founded I formed this advisory team together, and I put on that a number of my friends, high-profile people who have been with me on different other. So look, you give your best, and quite frankly, at the end of the day, the decision is theirs. And you've achieved something if the advice you gave, turns out pretty good. The benefits are obvious, and
yes,
yeah. But if they don't take the advice, at the end of the day, it's their prerogative.
It's almost 4 years since Kofi Annan passed, and you did some work with him as well. I mean,
yes.
How do you miss him?
Well, I think we all do, particularly in these times. I mean, I was a founding member of the Global Compact initiative, which he initiated, a wonderful compact to let the corporate world appreciate that it's not all about profit, and that sustainability, you can easily put it to it at his feet, that he made it happen. The concept of sustainability, the fact that it's not just them and us, that we are all in this thing together, a broad definition of stakeholders in any situation, that it's not just the person who put in the money here with it, but everybody else associated with it. So all of these things are important. And I'm saying that we all miss him now, because given the mess that the world finds itself in, I mean, wise influence of someone like Kofi Annan to rein everybody else in. You remember at the time when Americans were anxious and keen, they were determined to go and remove Saddam Hussein. He went there and met the man, and there was some kind of a dialogue. So yeah, the world needs him now.
What do you think he would have made of? Do you think he would have got to speak with Putin?
Yes, I think so. Yes, he's that kind of person. Yes, he would have. As I said, at a very difficult time, we went to Iraq to speak to Saddam Hussein, and almost got a deal from Saddam Hussein. Yeah.
When we put it out on my Twitter that I was coming to visit you and interview you, I asked them, listen, if you had 5 minutes with Mr. Sam Jonah, what kind of questions would you ask him? And so these are their questions. Quick question: what's the future of the extractive industry in Ghana?
The future the something that is doing well. It's doing well now, but as I said, it will continue to do well only if there's reinvestment in the mines. Because if you don't explore, the mines die. And then those investment decision making when it comes to corporates to invest, to decide to reinvest, comes in large part. It's a reflection of the conducive nature of the investment environment that you have. Okay, so we ought to be mindful of that we are not short-termish when we are dealing with mining companies or investors. It's very easy once the person has set up a mine to say that we are now going to slap on additional taxes or whatever, which is not what you offered him when he decided to put capital here. So it's very easy, very tempting for government to do that. But when you do that, it comes at a cost.
Okay.
Because we have the right geology.
We do.
We have the right geology to be able to have more mines. But, you know, the potential remains the potential until you drill and find gold.
Is it true that gold can be found almost everywhere in Ghana? This is something I heard.
That's an exaggeration.
It's an exaggeration.
No. It comes from a particular geological bed.
Okay.
And it's extensive, but it's not. It's a slight exaggeration.
Where's the limit? Where's the upper limit?
It goes right up to the north.
Okay.
It goes past Burkina Faso. There are mines which have been found on the other side of the border. Mines have been found on this side of the border. Yes.
All right. So in a strip, would it be like a column?
Yes, almost like a column. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
More questions on Twitter. Does it bother you that people feel that you should have done more for Obuasi? That you benefit from Obuasi, and what have you done for Obuasi?
It bothers me that I am so misunderstood in that sense. First of all, when you say I should have done more for Obuasi, I was an employee. I was using other people's money, including that of the country, because the country was the biggest shareholder before we became public. The country has 55% of the company. Okay. And London had 45%. I was the farm manager. Do you understand? Okay. So when they say I should have done more for Obuasi, I think that people misunderstand the role that the chief executive of a company has. It's not, you don't have the freedom or the authority to do what you like. However, because of my commitment to sustainability as defined earlier, I make sure that I made the case to the company. Look, I was brought up in Obuasi, and for most part, first of all, apart from the mines, which was an island unto itself, but the only house in the town which had electricity was my house. We had a generator when I was a kid. Okay. Standing water, piped water, those things did not. Okay, you didn't have it. But you didn't have it setting in the home. You had to go and fetch water and all of that nonsense. So when I became chief executive in 1986, I and my team, we came up with a plan for rehabilitation of Obuasi modernization. And we worked closely with the architecture department of tech and the town planning department. And it was funded, it was accepted by the company. And we did the roads, we installed street lights. We didn't have street lights. We had 3 major dams constructed, and everybody, Obuasi everywhere, they had water. Okay. I mean, we modernized schools. Obuasi schools, we worked on the schools in terms of physical facility modernization. We helped the local secondary school. We expanded the hospital so that everybody else can go and not just dependents of the hospital, of the company. We did all of that. But there's a fundament which I need to address, because that is at the core of the misunderstanding that people have. When people say, look at Obuasi, they say, look at Obuasi and look at Johannesburg. They all produce gold. You're right. Johannesburg was a gold town. Obuasi was and is a gold town. So is Takwa, so was Konongo. Do you know what the difference is? The difference is that Johannesburg, the owners of the mines were South Africans, albeit white. So they had nowhere to take their money. So they invested the money in their town, and the government applied the taxes in the town and in the country. Until 1972, when the champion, Obuasi had been since 1895. And by the way, Obuasi was founded by 3 Ghanaians. They formed the company, okay? But until they sold out. Until 1969, Ghana as a country did not have any shareholding interest in Obuasi, and we have blueprint since 1895. In 1969, the Ghana government was given 15% by loan roll because they wanted the lease of the company extended. It was given by another 50 years. Okay. Then in 1972, General Champon, took over the commanding height and assumed 55% interest in mines. That is when the Ghana government, for the first time, the people of Ghana became prominent owners of the mines.
Since 1895.
Since 1895. Okay. Then, to show you, at that time, the company was valued at less than 100 million. When we listed the company in 1994, the Ghana government, whose interest was 45%, reduced the entry to 30%, and for the 15%, for the 25% that they took $330 million of the table, cash. If even 100 million had been spent in Obuasi would have been a different place. But it went to go to balance the budget because consistently we have lived beyond our means. So when people compare South Africa, Johannesburg to Obuasi, what I want people to appreciate is that it is down to ownership. And I have previously in my speeches, I've lamented on the fact that the Ghanaian ownership of the local economy is very disappointing. Look at your mobile telephone companies. There is no Ghanaian, forget about Vodafone, because Vodafone is so Vodafone, Ghana government has about, Ghana has about, I don't know what the figure is, but maybe 20% or whatever. There is no, whether it's MTN, whether it's Airtel, there is no Ghanaian who has 1% of any of them. Look at the banks. They have a Nigerian owned or Standard Chartered batteries, all of them foreign owned. Look at even the insurance companies now. Look at the mines. There's no Ghanaian who has 1% of any of the mines. No Ghanaian. It's a fact. There's no Ghanaian who has 1% of any of the oil, tallow or whatever. So when they take their money, where do you think they're going to put it? Outside. But if a Ghanaian has 20%, and this thing doesn't just happen, empowerment doesn't just happen. It's a deliberate act of government policy to empower your own people. So if you sit there idle and you don't do anything, equity does not assist the indolent. You don't do anything, you take their money away. So I've heard this thing said so many times that, oh, he didn't do much work. First of all, as I said, I was a farm manager. I made a case for Obuasi to be modernized, and with great pride, I would say that we modernized Obuasi in a big way. Obuasi town was what, less than 50,000 people. It's more than 300,000 people. Whole place changed. So many housing estates. We invested about 5,000 houses and created jobs. So I'm very proud of my record within the limitations of what I was as a chief executive of the company.
We're going to be wrapping this in a very short while, but I must ask a couple of questions. A lot of people seem to be interested in how to overcome failure. And one of the questions is, what was your greatest failure in your life?
I've had too many great failures, so I can't single out one.
Okay, maybe a couple of them, and what you learned and how you overcame it.
Oh, so many. So, I mean, some of my investments have gone incredibly horribly. I've taken decisions that I wish I applied different judgment to the decisions in business, in my personal life, and all of that, for which I have great regrets. But you know, if you're not failing, you're not making progress. You would fail, you will have setbacks. It is part of the course. You should expect that. Because if you're not failing, if you're not making mistakes, if you're not having setbacks, you are playing God. Nobody can play God. So I've had my tons of failures, tons of mistakes, tons of setbacks. In fact, I've said that I've had more failure than I've had successes. Really? Oh, absolutely. But you learn from your failures. It's not how many times, it's what you do when you fall. That's what matters. As for failures, but do you become desperate? Do you throw your arms up in the air and give up? You shouldn't. You should press on, but learn from the mistakes that you've made. Because every mistake comes with lessons. And you must learn the lessons. If you don't learn the lessons, then you stand in danger of repeating the same mistakes.
How do you deal with regrets?
Regrets, I've had many, but I don't sleep. I don't take them to my sleep. I don't wake up in the morning and say, my God, I appreciate that I have made mistakes. I appreciate that there have been misjudgments. I have talked to people the way that I wish I hadn't. All of us, when we stand in front of a mirror every morning, you go through, it's a judgment call, you go through process, my God, what did I do? It's instinctively, it just comes subliminary. You don't even think about it. It's subconsciously that, my God, did I behave well? Did I say this? Did I treat them well? Did I actually have done this or not? But you go through that only because you want to learn lessons to become a better person. Otherwise, you get overwhelmed with remorse and regret. And then what?
I get you. When was the last time you cried?
When was the last time I cried? When I lost my son. It was a very painful moment for me. Brilliant, respectful, dedicated to the family. Wonderful kid. Richard, my partner in business. And he died tragically, too early, too young. And it was unexpected. It was a mighty blow. But you stay strong. So I cried, yes, I'm human. And I do have tears, I do have tears. So yeah, I cry. And I have cried or come close to crying. I've shed a few tears, but crying is quite stronger. Not a lot stronger, but I've shed tears when I've heard sad stories. And there are sad stories that come to my table every day. Last week, I shared this with you. Last week, an old guy who comes here to work with me in my fish pond here told me of a very sad story of a family which was living in a shack in Adenta, and there was a storm, and there was fire, and it wiped the family. The father was beyond recognition. And they had twins, 12-year-old girls. And they don't know the extended family, so they have nobody to tend to. And this poor guy who gets 550 cedis, he said, well, it's paid. Is the person who's helping them to eat and all of that. So I said, oh my God, so go and bring them. And they came to my office and looked at these girls, so innocent, through no fault of theirs. It could have been me, could have been my children. And I was close to tears, but then it is not enough. I decided I'll do something about it.
That's it.
And so sure, you would have that. You will have regrets. You will have disappointment. You will have setbacks. Welcome them, embrace them, because otherwise you are playing God. Because if you think that all your judgments, all your decisions are sacrosanct, they are beyond question, you get everything right, then quite frankly, set up a church, because you do very well.
What's your advice for the generation, the young people coming up who are looking for direction? What do you tell them?
Don't lose hope. Don't lose hope. Persevere. Have a focus and work on it. This is your generation. This is your time. My father used to tell us when we were kids, he says, be ignorant only once. Be ignorant only once. These days, everybody has a smartphone. Doesn't matter how poor we are. We all have a phone smart. So, please learn something. Your education starts with you and ends with you. The education is not what you go through formally. So apply your mind, the opportunities. Just be creative. Apply. It's not easy. It is not easy, particularly in a situation where there is very little access to capital. But think out of the box. Be creative. Just do things and learn to take one step at a time. One step at a time. And as much as I encourage you to be ambitious, temper your ambition with reality also, because in life you must have apprenticeship. Every aspect of life you must have apprenticeship.
Where can somebody learn?
Learn. We are too anxious to be on our own. You see young lawyers, they come out of law school, they work in a law firm 2 years, then they think that they got their own client, they go and set up. Then they start struggling. I just use the law as one example. There are many, many examples like that. Learn, come to appreciate that you learn more at the feet of those who have been there. Okay. But don't give up hope, because if hope dies, you go with it.
Finally, this year is the 50th anniversary of the passing of our first president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. He did great things for the country. If you were president for just one day, just for a day, 24 hours, and you could pass a law that would not be scrapped off the books after your 1 day of office had expired, what one law would you pass?
What one law?
Yes.
It's a very difficult and unfair question.
But I know
I would. I don't know about the law.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to be a president, and it won't happen, it won't happen. Forget it. But if I was a president for 1 hour,
yes,
I would step into the shoes of Kwame Nkrumah for 1 hour. He was a visionary. He offered the leadership that this country needs, Africa needs, the world needs. He was streets ahead of his time, miles ahead of time, years ahead of his time. He's a guy who gave everybody hope. Okay, and if I had to be a president for 1 hour,
or 1 day,
I'll be Kwame Nkrumah for 1 day, and I'll bring hope. And I would let people dream their dreams, and let people think big, and let people look beyond the narrow whatever of politics, and be Ghanaians first, and look after the interests of Ghana first. That's what I'll do for 1 hour or 1 day, but it will never happen. So but you're allowed to do it. Nobody can stop me from dreaming. So you can dream. I'll continue to dream to be a Kwame Nkrumah for 1 hour.
I know you play.
Yeah.
When was the last time you played on your piano?
Interesting enough, this morning I played I Surrender. I love hymns.
Yes.
I love hymns. So I love hymns. I'm sure you're saying that for somebody who's not religious. But
the music.
They do something to you.
They do. What do they do to you?
Oh, I think it inspires. They inspire me. They inspire me. They make me reflect. There's something about hymns that,
I surrender all.
Yeah, I surrender all. Yeah.
Have you surrendered all?
Whatever that is supposed to be.
However you want to interpret it.
I don't know. I just love the hymn. Yeah.
I really would love to hear you play. But thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.
Sir Sam, this was a wonderful conversation.
Thank you.
And I thank you for opening up and speaking about it.
Thank you. My pleasure.
It's a real pleasure.
You stay well.
Thank you so much.
All the best.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's Mr. Sam Jonah, Sir Sam Jonah, with our interview on GTV Breakfast. Thank you so much again, and enjoy your day.
You enjoy your day.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Wish me well on the golf course.
No, you have to do well.
Yeah.
What's your handicap now?
My wife.
I hope she's not here.
I've said it many times, so you forgive me.
All right. GTV Breakfast back after this.
Thank you.
Thank you.